Hello, everyone. I am Travis McIver with Far Northern Regional Center, and I am the emergency coordinator here. And this is one of our quarterly classes on preparing for emergency events. Thank you for joining us today. With me, I have Rebecca and William. They are going to be my assistant instructors today. Would you guys like to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys joining me as well. You're a tremendous help for these classes. I appreciate it. So the first class, this is going to be a series of 3 classes, but the first class we're going to cover today is preparing for fire evacuations. We've actually done this class in the past, but since fire season's right around the corner, we wanted to do it again as a good safety reminder for tips in the event that you may have to evacuate in case of a fire. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, and William, Rebecca, can you guys see that okay?
Yes, we do.
All right, awesome. So let's go ahead and begin the class. As I said, this one is going to be fire evacuation and preparation. And what we're going to be talking about today are where should we go in the case or the event that there is a fire, plan for a route of travel to get to your evacuation site, take pictures of furnitures and other high-value items such as jewelry, maybe computers, TVs. And we'll explain a little bit more about that once that slide pops up. What to pack in case you have to evacuate. Notify your insurance and bill collectors, such as your gas utility or water utility. Plan for your pets to evacuate as well. And keep family and friends informed on where and how you are going to be evacuating. And then there will be a little spot for questions at the end. So for the first slide here, so where are you going to go? It's important that we come up with these plans ahead of time before an actual real life fire occurs. So let's take the time now to think about where it is that we would like to evacuate to in case you have to leave your home in a fire. So when creating a plan to evacuate, one of the first considerations to make is where are you going to go? Are you going to go to a friend's house, a family member's house? It may even be part of your plan to go to an evacuation shelter. And there's nothing wrong with that, maybe a campground. But these are things that we need to think about now so that when an actual fire happens, we do have a good plan and it's going to reduce a lot of stress. And I think William, Rebecca, you guys have seen things like fire evacuations, that those can be pretty stressful, correct?
Yes, they can.
It
And
can
this-
be very stressful.
Right. So we want to reduce as much stress as possible. Thank you, you guys. By creating these plans ahead of time. That way, when the fire comes, you just pick up and go. You already know where you're going. Okay, so a family member's home, that is a good one. If you have family members nearby, okay, not all of us have family members nearby, but if you do, maybe give them a call and see if it's okay for them to have you stay at their home in case there is a fire. Okay, so these are all things we want to talk about ahead of time too, right? We don't want to just show up at our friend's house and go, hey, I'm staying here. That doesn't always work very well because they may already have guests over, or they may just not have the room for whatever reason at the moment. So make sure that we include them in our plans, right? Having their feedback ahead of time allows us to make a good informative plan before a fire actually occurs. So hotels, a hotel is another option, but just be aware that hotels can be what? They can be
Full already.
They can be full already. Definitely during an emergency, a hotel fills up really quick. Okay, so you might need to find multiple hotels if that's going to be part of your plan ahead of time, right? And then another thing too is hotels can be pretty expensive to stay there if you have to stay there for a long period of time. So please plan for that. A friend's home, like we said, it's the same thing, as a family member's home. If you want to go to a friend's home, if you have to evacuate, which is a pretty cool option if you have that option, But just make sure that they are aware that you're gonna be coming over and they're part of that plan in case there is a fire. Some other considerations
Also-
is that, what was that?
They'll say also too, people don't think about the kids. Well, if you're panicking, your kids can panic too, and it's worse for the kids because they're not gonna understand what's going on, so they're gonna panic more than you will,
Correct.
and that's hard for the.
Yeah, absolutely, Rebecca. Thank you. Kids feel our emotions a lot, even if we don't realize it. So by having these plans ahead of time, it really helps keep everybody in a much more calm state. Um, Another thing to think about too is that, your family or your friends' homes may also be in the path of the fire, right? So they may have to evacuate as well. So it's good to have a couple of different plans. A campsite, or if you have a camper type trailer or an RV, those are good options. If you need to pack up and leave. I do suggest if if you're lucky enough to have an RV or a camper, have those items already packed ahead of time, right? Because we can store things in those items. That way it reduces the time that you need to evacuate. You can already have the important items in there and you can just pick up and leave if you need to. Campsites, that's another possibility. There's a lot of campsites or campgrounds now that also have showers, bathroom facilities. So you can stay there in a long period of time. They're usually cheaper than hotels, right? So that might be a potential as a place to evacuate to. But also be aware, if you haven't done a lot of camping for a long period of time, eventually it might not be super comfortable as well. So these are all things to think about, but it's whatever you're really comfortable with doing. Once again, so make sure we choose these locations far in advance. Don't wait until the fire that comes through the area to start making these plans. We have time now. So let's start thinking about developing these plans now. That way, when the fires do happen, that we can get out safely and we know where we're going. Next, we're going to talk about planning for your route of travel. So when we plan for a route of escape, we want to keep a few things in mind. You want obviously to get out quick, right? So you want a good, quick access outside of the dangerous area. For some of us who live way out in the country, I'm one of them. Okay, you may have very small roads. They may be dirt roads. You might not be able to use all of these extremely quickly in case of an emergency. So you might need to plan for that additional time to head down some of those roads.
And if
So-
you only have one way out, you should leave earlier than anybody else does.
Perfect, William. Yes, please do not, take your time packing up if you only have one way in, one way out. There's a lot of individuals that tend to get trapped because if the fire crosses that one road, now what are you going to do? You can't leave. So then you have to shelter in place, and sheltering in place can be a lot more dangerous. So please, yes, if you only have one way in, one way out, or it's small roads, make sure you're really planning for that additional time needed to get out safely. Another thing to think about is avoid high traffic roads. Okay. If you live in like maybe a smaller town, there might be only just one main road that goes through that town. And if everybody's trying to evacuate at once, now you have a traffic jam. Okay. And traffic jams itself can be hazardous when these big fires go through. So just like William said, we just really need to plan ahead of time and make sure we have maximum time to get to safety. Okay. Another one is try to pick routes that allow for good communication. What I mean by this is that once again, where I happen to live, I have very bad cell phone service. Okay. And that's unfortunate. But if you know that there's certain areas where you live that has better cell phone service, try and take those roads. Because if something happens, let's say your vehicle breaks down in the middle of the fire, okay, you need to be able to call for help, right? So make sure you pick a road or a trail that has good cell phone communication in case you need to reach out to the fire department for an emergency, or the sheriff's department, or friends and family. So please consider that as well. Know that some routes may require special vehicles to get through, okay? For some of us that also live way out in the country, you know, we have deer trails or logging trails. And you may know those roads very well, but just be aware that if you're packing a bunch of stuff in your truck, it may be more difficult to get through those roads. Make sure you have a good four-wheel drive vehicle if that's what you're planning, okay? But really, I would highly suggest to stick to main roads like highways, okay, or main streets for towns. Those roads are going to usually be your safer routes of travel. And then have more than one route. Like William said, if you only have one way in and one way out, there's some houses that are just like that. And I know we have to kind of deal with that, but we have to plan for it. But if you can get more than one way in and one way out, having multiple roads, that's going to be safer because you're going to have more avenues, more ways to travel to get to safety. Okay. So please think about these things. And then once you pick your routes, we need to test them and make sure that you can get out safely and quickly. Okay. So it's a good idea to take a day and just pretend like there's a fire coming and load your vehicle up as fast as you can, and then pick that safe route and travel down that route to evacuate, because practice makes perfect, right? So by practicing,
Practice makes
Exact-
perfect, even
ex-
for your whole family and for the little ones.
exactly, okay, and it makes it less stressful too. You know, if the kids are already used to helping you pack your car, they're not going to be quite as afraid because it's going to be just part of the system that you guys already have for your plan, right? Next, we're going to talk about is inventorying our high value items with pictures. Now, a high value item, I don't always necessarily mean that has to be something that's expensive. Okay, it could also just be something that's important to you, right? Maybe it's a china set that you got from your mom, or it could be a whole bunch of different things, but things that are important to you, that unfortunately, if a fire does reach your house and these items are lost, you can try and replace some of them with insurance. Okay. Now, unfortunately, for things that you may be given to you from, you know, parents or grandparents, insurance can't really replace that because that's something that's personal. But for some of the other items, like maybe furniture, as beds and couches, television, maybe jewelry, for those of you who have a jewelry collection, these things can be replaced depending on the insurance program that you have. Okay, but what we want to do is plan ahead of time. So take pictures of your high value items, okay, so that you can show them to the insurance company. And as Rebecca was talking to me earlier before the class, you know, document it all on paperwork. Would you like to go a little bit more into depth on that, Rebecca?
Yes, I sure can, Travis. Okay. On the, we tell people, we also give people ideas about making a list. Everything in your home, like your computer, your TV, your refrigerator, even your expensive pots and pans, your dishes you had from when your mom had them, stuff like that. We also let people know that every list is going to be different. Some lists might not be the same, but the insurance, I'm going to need it on a paper. It's also a good idea to start taking pictures now, so that way when the fire is in your area, you won't panic, you won't forget. And it's just a good idea to start taking them now, but you're still going to need it on a piece of paper, everything in your home.
Exactly. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, as Rebecca stated, don't wait for the fire, because you're not going to have time to go through and take pictures or write things down. It's already too late for that. But right now, we all have time. There's no big fires going on right now. So think about that now, and take the time to write down what's important to you in your home, and have that recorded. And then put those documents in a safe spot, right? Don't leave them in your home.
You to go binder.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
all your paperwork.
Right. Yeah, you need that to go binder, and you need to have that in there. Don't leave that in your home. It won't do you any good, unfortunately, there. Thank you, Rebecca. So what to pack during an evacuation? So if we have to leave, here's some items that we can need to consider. Now, we actually have done a class of this before, specifically on emergency to-go bags. So I'm not gonna get a whole lot into detail on that, but you can go ahead and look up our class on YouTube if you'd like a reminder. But you do want to have a to-go bag. And what we would put in our to-go bag, is going to be a little bit different for everybody, but some people might need things like certain medications, if you have medications, important documents, just like Rebecca said before, in a to-go folder or I Love Me book, whatever you'd like to call it. You might want to put in things like your birth certificates or social security numbers. That very important document where you just log down all of your high value items we just talked about. We want to put all those type of things in there. That way you have it ready to go when you need it. Okay. You don't want to have to sit there and rush and try and find these documents when a fire is going on. So we should do this ahead of time. Make sure that you have enough food and water. Sometimes we have to stay away from our homes for a long time if we get evacuated. Okay. So try and bring as much of that as you can. For instance, if you had to go to a campground, if that was your plan, that's fine, but just make sure that you got the food that you need to sustain yourself in the campground. It can be trail mix, it can be an ice chest with sandwich stuff that you can bring with you. Whatever you can bring, that'll help in the long run. And then make sure that you have things like utensils and cooking equipment, like a frying pan, stuff that you can use on a fire pit if you were to be in a campground spot. Okay. Because eating out, if we have to eat out at restaurants, that gets pretty expensive real quick. But by bringing this stuff with us, we can kind of lower that cost a little bit and reduce that stress. What do you guys think?
I think it's a good idea. Because remember, when we have fires, we all panic. We all have that poison panic that we don't think about because we're all scared and worried.
Right. And then, another thing to think about too, and why we want to bring some of that food with us is, for instance, for the town of Paradise, do you think McDonald's was open? No, McDonald's
Everybody
closed. Yeah, exactly.
because everybody thought that was going to be a flood. So everybody was just panicking, trying to get out of there. Not
right.
And a lot of people got their shoes. They started walking out of their homes without their shoes because they got so panicked and so stressed.
And we're trying to avoid all that by creating these plans now. But yeah, those restaurants might not even be open. The pharmacies might not be open. So that's why we need to pack this stuff ahead of time so you have a decent backup. A cell phone charger. I know a lot of us use our cell phones for a lot of different things, and it's very important nowadays during emergencies. So make sure you have a good cell phone charger packed with your cell phone. And then make sure that you plan for being away from your home for a long period of time. Unfortunately, there's been some people that have been stuck out of their homes for a month. So we need to plan for this. Okay. So make sure you have, some extra clothes and all this kinds of stuff to sustain yourself for a while, because this may not just be for 1 day or 2 days. You may be stuck away from your home for quite some time before you can go back when it's safe. William, Rebecca, do you guys have anything else, do you think?
Make sure you change out your bags every 6 months or when the time changes.
That's a very good point.
Bad.
Exactly. Thank you, William. That's a very good point. Yeah. Okay. So for those of us that all live up here in Northern California, we do know that it does what? In the wintertime, it gets pretty cold up in the mountains, right? But in the summertime, it gets pretty hot. So it's not going to be good to pack all your stuff in the wintertime and have a bunch of coats and jackets and, big heavy pants, because in the summertime, for most of us that have been here for a while, if you've just moved here, just be aware it's going to be 110 degrees out here. So make sure that, like what William just said, that you do, go through your bag every 6 months and pack it accordingly to the right seasons. Thank you, William. So next we're going to talk about notifying your insurance and your utility bill companies. Okay. The reason why we want to do this is for a couple of reasons. One, for your insurance company, some insurance programs actually have ways that they can assist you if you happen to evacuate. Now, it depends on what kind of insurance or home insurance you have, but understand that for some emergency events, some insurance companies will actually even either refund you the money it took to stay at a hotel or a campground, or they may pay for it even upfront to help you out during the time of an emergency event. But in order for them to do that, you need to call your insurance ahead of time because they're not going to necessarily know. Okay. Insurance companies are going to be overwhelmed with a lot of people that are evacuated. So you have to take that step and actually call the insurance company and say, hey, I have been evacuated and I am staying at the Motel 6 at whatever town. And maybe they can help you out with that. They can also possibly give you more money for additional food supplies or other livelihood supplies like shampoo and whatnot. But it just really depends on the insurance that you have set up as well. So not all insurance is the same. So it's a good idea to give them a call and even ask what your insurance will do in the case of an emergency event. Another thing is,
Also,
what was that, Rebecca?
I'll say also too, Travis, if people know where their gas is and the water lines, they might want to turn them off because you never know if you have it on, that fire in your home is going to ignite and then it's going to go burn down more houses. So it's a good idea to get to know where those two things are at so you can turn them off if you have to leave your home for a disaster or a fire.
Yeah, no, that's another good point. A lot of us that use gas and stuff for our homes, you're going to want to turn that off because has a better chance of protecting your home by turning off the gas valve than just leaving it on during a fire event. Same thing with the water. You can have that turned off as well. But you do have to know because every home is set up a little bit different. Just make sure you know where those items are. Okay. And if you don't know, you can have somebody come and help you with it. Because it is very important. And along with those utilities, by calling them. So for instance, let's say we use PG&E as our electric bill. If you call them ahead of time and say, hey, I am being evacuated, sometimes you'll get a discount on your bill because you can tell them, please turn off my electricity, right? And if your electricity was turned off for a week, that it might be money that you just saved because they're not going to charge you for that week. But just like the insurance that we mentioned before, some of these utility companies, they're not going to know because they're going to be busy. So you got to actually call them and say, please turn off my water bill or my gas bill or my electric bill for a week, and or however long it is that you're going to be evacuated. And you might be able to save a little bit of money that way. Just remember, because living out of your home can be very expensive. So everything adds up really quick. So by doing these type of events, by notifying your insurance or notifying your utilities, whatever little bit of money you can save, it's for the better, right? So next we're going to be talking about planning for our pets. Okay. A lot of us have pets nowadays. I actually have 3 dogs and a turtle. So I have to make plans for my pets too, in case I ever evacuate, right? So it's important to think ahead of time and make sure that we have a good plan developed for our pets as well. Because if our plan is to get to a hotel, do all hotels take pets? No, some do not. Now, most of the hotels up here in the North State, most of them are pretty pet friendly, but just be aware that not every single hotel is the same, and not every single hotel will say you can have your dog, okay? Or they may also let you have your dog, but what are they going to do? They're going to charge you some more money, right? So if you have a dog or a cat, they may say, okay, you can bring it, but it's going to be another $100 down on your hotel bill. So just be aware of that if that is your plan. Okay, so if you want to go to a hotel, make sure you call them ahead of time and see if they are pet friendly if you happen to have pets. Now, some other animals that are a little bit bigger, like goats and donkeys and cows, if you have some of these some of these animals, we need to know where we need to take them as well. Now, a lot of places here, a lot of the counties up here in the North State, like Plumas County, Shasta County, a lot of them, when there's fires, they'll allow people to bring their animals over to like rodeo grounds or maybe the county fairgrounds. They usually have evacuation spots set up there. But once again, I would call ahead of time and make this plan, make sure it's going to be available in the case of an emergency event. That way, you know ahead of time. Because remember, there's going to be a lot of people going to those locations that have these animals.
And the pets need their own to-go bag packed as well, their own individual bag.
Correct. Yeah, your pet should have their own bag. Some pets require certain medications. Some pets have certain diets. So we need to have all of their stuff in there. Maybe some even have their favorite toys, because can pets get stressed out too?
Yes.
Yes, they can.
Definitely. And then they know when something's wrong. Okay. So, you know, by having a little toy for your cat, the one that your cat likes the most, and you bring that'll just make your cat a little bit more comfortable if you happen to evacuate with it with your cat. Okay. So make sure you have these items in their to-go bag as well. Also make sure that you have, you know, food for them, water, leashes, maybe carrying cases for cats, or, you know, kennels for a dog. This will help you safely evacuate with your animals, because you have a little bit more options with your animals if you bring those items with you. Another thing you can do is call your local animal shelter in the case of an emergency event, because if you can't find a place for your pet, a lot of animal shelters may watch them for free, and because they're aware that there is an emergency. But you got to call them and see if they have room, because some of the small areas, for instance, if you're in a small town area up in like Trinity County, they're going to have a much smaller shelter, so they can only hold so many animals. So make sure you give them a call and talk to somebody and have them be part of your plan if you're developing a plan for this shelter. Do you guys have any other suggestions for pets? No.
Nope.
So next we're going to be talking about keeping family and friends informed. Okay. So once you have successfully evacuated, make sure you call your friends and family so they know that you're all right. Okay. A lot of times we forget to do this because of everything that's going on. But then what happens? Our friends and our family, they start to worry about us, right? And then they might call the news agency, or they may call the sheriff's department and say, I haven't heard from Rebecca for like 2 days. I want to make sure she's all right. But, you know, since Rebecca knows better, she would have already called her friends and family and go, hey, I'm staying in Motel 6. I'm okay. I got my animals with me. We're all having a great time. Okay, but you need to tell people this, otherwise they're going to worry. Okay. Another thing that you should do with your friends and family is make sure that they know what your plan is. So if they don't hear from you, they might know that your plan was to go to this certain campground. Okay. Because if they know that they go looking for you, they can go straight to that campground. So if William wanted to go camping, in the case of an emergency, they know that, oh, well, William likes this one particular campground. We're going to go look there, and then they'll find William. So that's why we need to include everybody in our plans, right? Communication is very, very important.
Also, too, what you can also can do is, if you have like an aunt or a cousin that lives in the same town as you do, you can always change numbers. So that way he has your number and you have her number. And that way you can, if person is not able to call, the other one can call you, and then they can call everybody else too. So it's good to have numbers that you both can share, and that way you can call and your families can call you if you're not able to call them. Or if you're in one spot and the meeting's at this spot, now you have a way to contact each other without trying to find each other. That's another good idea.
Absolutely. And along with that, from time to time, some of us do what? We change our phones, or we change our phone numbers. So if we change our phone numbers, we should once again remind everybody or send them your new phone number, right? So don't forget to do that. But that's the end of this class. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'd like to thank Rebecca and William, once again for joining me today. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add before we let everybody go?
All I can say is everybody please practice. So now when no one stresses out, and you never know when a fire can be in your back door or on your front door, because you never know when a fire can happen. So I just want everybody to practice as often and your routes as much as possible. It's very important to make sure you're safe and everyone else is safe in your family.
Thank you, Rebecca. William?
Just be safe, guys. When something happens, just get out and do not come back.
Thank you, William. And remember, fire season's pretty much now, right? We are heading into fire season already. So these are all very important things to think about. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to say, have a great day.
Bye.